Good morning, Virgo. There's a restlessness building in someone connected to you, and it's not the kind that fades with time or distraction. It's the kind that grows heavier with each day of silence, with each conversation that doesn't happen, with each moment where truth sits unspoken between you like a third presence neither of you is acknowledging. And that weight, that pressure of unsaid things, it's reaching a point where staying quiet feels more unbearable than the risk of finally speaking. You might already be sensing this shift in the energy around communication. This isn't about casual conversation. This isn't small talk or surface level check ins or the kind of exchanges that fill space without saying anything real. This is about someone who has something lodged in their throat, something that's been sitting there for weeks or months, something they've rehearsed and edited and talked themselves out of saying so many times that the words have worn grooves in their mind. And now, as we move deeper into this season, that internal pressure is becoming impossible to ignore. Some of you might notice this as a change in how this person shows up around you. More present, but more tense, more attentive, but more guarded, like they're gathering courage, like they're waiting for the right moment or the right words or the right conditions. But what they're really waiting for is their own permission to be vulnerable enough to say what needs to be said. There is a sense that this person has been operating under constraints, internal ones more than external, beliefs about what's safe to express, fears about how honesty will be received, anxiety about changing a dynamic by introducing truth into it. And those constraints, those self imposed limitations on communication, they've created a kind of prison where this person is trapped between what they feel and what they're willing to show, between what they want and what they're allowing themselves to pursue. Um, and living in that gap, in that space between authentic desire and performative restraint, it's exhausting. It creates a constant low level tension that affects everything. Every interaction becomes calculated, every word gets filtered, every impulse toward honesty gets second guessed. And eventually, that level of self monitoring becomes unsustainable. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you sense about this person's relationship to honesty, and has their communication with you felt filtered or full? It's possible this person has been waiting for clarity before speaking, wanting to be absolutely certain about what they feel before they express it, wanting to have answers to all the questions their honesty might raise, wanting to control outcomes by controlling information. But clarity doesn't always come before communication. Sometimes it comes through it. Sometimes you have to speak your truth messily and uncertainly in order to discover what your truth actually is. And this person might be starting to understand that, might be recognizing that waiting for perfect clarity is just another form of avoidance, that the certainty they're demanding of themselves before they speak is actually impossible to achieve in isolation, that some things can only become clear through the vulnerability of sharing them. There's also something here about timing that feels significant, not because certain dates hold magical power, but because internal processes have rhythms. And whatever this person has been working through, whatever transformation or realization or acceptance they've been moving toward, It seems to be reaching a natural point of completion, like they're approaching the end of a chapter that required solitude or silence or internal processing. And the next chapter, the one that's trying to begin, requires communication, requires reaching across the distance they've created and attempting connection again. It can seem as if they've been preparing, not consciously planning or strategizing, but unconsciously getting ready, building courage, developing the language, finding the internal resources to handle whatever response their honesty generates. And that preparation, that slow gathering of strength, it's been necessary because speaking truth to someone whose opinion matters, whose response matters, whose presence in your life matters, that takes a particular kind of bravery. Some of you might be wondering what specifically this person needs to say. And the answer is probably layered. It might be an apology for distance they've created, or an explanation for choices they've made, or a confession of feelings they've been hiding, or a request for something they need from you, or a boundary they haven't been able to set, or all of these things tangled together in a complicated knot that can only be untangled through honest conversation. But what's universal across all of these possibilities is that the communication carries emotional weight. It's not informational, it's relational. It's about trying to shift or deepen or repair or clarify the connection between you. And that kind of communication, that heart level exchange, it requires both people to be present, to be willing to listen without immediately defending or explaining or shutting down. This reflection invites you to consider, if this person were to speak their full truth to you right now, would you be able to receive it without making it about your reaction to it? There's also the reality that this person might be scared of your response. Not just rejection, though that's part of it, but judgment, disappointment, anger, the ways you might see them differently after knowing their truth, the ways honesty might complicate what's currently simple or comfortable or manageable, and that fear, that anxiety about changing your perception of them. It's a real barrier because once words are spoken, they can't be unspoken. Once truth is shared, you can't return to the innocence of not knowing. And for some people, that permanence of communication feels too risky, so they stay silent. They manage the discomfort of not speaking rather than face the potential consequences of speaking. But there's a limit to how long that strategy works, a limit to how much unexpressed truth a person can carry before it starts poisoning everything else. It may feel as though there's been a breakdown in how you and this person exchange information. Like the channels that used to flow easily have become clogged or complicated, where conversations that used to feel natural now feel strained, where you're both editing yourselves, both performing versions of connection rather than actually connecting. And that performative dynamic, that surface level exchange when both of you know there's depth beneath it, it creates its own kind of tension because you can feel when someone's not being real with you. You can sense when there's subtext, when there's more happening than what's being said. And that awareness, that knowing that you're not getting the full story or the real story, it makes it hard to trust anything, it makes every interaction feel slightly off, it makes you question whether you're imagining things or picking up on something real. Some of you might also be craving this communication just as much as they are, feeling the same frustration with surface level interaction. wanting to break through the politeness or the distance or the careful neutrality into something more honest, more raw, more real. And if both of you are feeling that pull toward deeper communication, but neither of you is initiating it, then you're stuck in a standoff, both waiting for the other to go first, both protecting yourselves from the vulnerability of reaching when the other person might not reach back. And that's the risk, isn't it? That's what makes communication about things that matter so terrifying. The possibility that you'll extend yourself and be met with silence or dismissal or a response that confirms your worst fears about not mattering as much as you hoped you did. This reflection invites you to consider, what would you need to feel safe enough to speak your own truth to this person? And do those conditions exist, or could they be created? There's something about the coming weeks that feels like a threshold, not because external circumstances are forcing anything, but because internal pressure has been mounting, and eventually pressure finds release. And if this person has been holding back communication, has been managing their need to speak, has been containing what wants to be expressed, that containment might be approaching its limit. The dam might be ready to break. And when that happens, when someone finally lets themselves speak after prolonged silence, the communication often comes in a rush. It's not measured or carefully parceled out, it's everything at once. All the things they've been thinking, all the feelings they've been having, all the questions they've been sitting with. And receiving that kind of flood, being on the receiving end of someone's accumulated truth. It can feel overwhelming even when it's what you've been wanting. It's also possible that circumstances are creating natural openings for this conversation, events or situations that bring you into contact to this, or remove obstacles that have been keeping distance in place, or simply create time and space where honest exchange becomes possible. And those openings, those moments where communication could happen if someone were brave enough to initiate it, is less than hash zero. 5 hashes greater than, they might be increasing in frequency as we move through these weeks. It can seem as if life is conspiring to create opportunities for truth, putting you and this person in proximity, removing distractions, creating quiet where things can be said and actually heard. And whether you both take advantage of those opportunities or let them pass, that's the choice that will determine whether this communication happens or continues to be delayed. Some of you might need to prepare for the possibility that what this person needs to say might not be what you're hoping to hear, that their truth might be difficult, might require something of you, might challenge your understanding of the situation or your assumptions about where things stand, and preparing for that, staying open to hearing hard things without immediately shutting down. That's its own form of courage. Because real communication isn't just about speaking, it's about listening. Really listening, not planning your response while the other person talks, not filtering what you hear through your own needs or expectations, but actually receiving what's being offered and giving it space to exist before you react to it. There's also something here about clarity being the goal, about this person recognizing that the ambiguity between you, the uncertainty about where you stand with each other, the lack of defined understanding, it's not serving either of you. And that clarity, even if it's uncomfortable clarity, even if it reveals things that are hard to face, is better than continuing to exist in the fog of not knowing. Because not knowing creates its own suffering. It keeps you suspended, unable to fully move forward or fully let go, caught in a liminal space of maybe, and some people can tolerate that space indefinitely. But others reach a point where they need resolution, need to know, need to establish what's real and what's fantasy, what's possible and what's not. This reflection invites you to consider, if this person spoke and the truth they shared required you to fundamentally reassess this connection, would you be grateful for the clarity or resentful of the disruption? There's vulnerability in asking for what you need, in saying, this is what I want from you, or this is what I'm struggling with, or this is where I need clarity, because asking exposes need. And need, especially emotional need, is something many people have been taught to hide or minimize or manage independently. So for this person to be approaching a place where they're willing to voice their needs, that represents significant internal growth, significant movement toward authenticity. And if that communication arrives, if this person does find the courage to speak, try to recognize the vulnerability in it. Try to honor the risk they're taking. Even if what they say is imperfect, even if they stumble over words or don't express it as clearly as they wish, the act of trying, of reaching across the silence, that matters. That deserves acknowledgement, even if you ultimately can't give them what they're asking for. It may feel as though this entire dynamic has been about waiting. You waiting for them to speak, them waiting for courage or clarity or the right moment. Both of you waiting for conditions that might never be perfect. And maybe what needs to shift is the waiting itself. Maybe what needs to happen is someone deciding that now is good enough, that imperfect communication is better than continued silence, that messy honesty beats polished avoidance, because the right time might never arrive, the perfect words might never come, the certainty you're both demanding before you speak might remain elusive, and in the meantime, days become weeks, become months. And distance that could have been bridged with one honest conversation becomes a chasm that feels impossible to cross. So, as these weeks unfold, stay attentive, stay open. Notice if this person starts testing the waters, dropping hints, creating openings, behaving in ways that suggest they want to say something but haven't found their way into it yet. And if you want this communication to happen, consider whether you need to create safety for it, whether you need to signal that you're receptive, that you're willing to hear hard things, that honesty won't be punished with withdrawal or judgment. Because sometimes people need permission, need to feel like it's safe to be real. And if you can offer that, if you can create even a small opening for truth, you might be surprised how quickly it rushes in to fill the space. Stay present, stay curious, and remember that communication, especially honest communication, is an act of courage for everyone involved. Speak your truth when you're ready. Listen to theirs when it arrives, and trust that whatever needs to be said will find its way into words, if you both allow it. This reflection invites you to consider, what would you most want this person to know if you knew they were finally ready to hear it?